NFL Live with breaking news out of Indy. Adam Schefter, what more can you tell us?
Phil, the Indianapolis Colts have made a decision about their starting quarterback, and they are going with Daniel Jones, the man they signed to a contract during the offseason that they paid $14 million to during the offseason. You heard over the weekend the Colts head coach Shane Steichen say he was looking for somebody who could command the huddle, take charge, get guys in the right position, and he clearly felt Daniel Jones was the quarterback to choose over Anthony Richardson, so much so that Shane Steichen even said that this is not a short-term trial basis type of decision. He is planning for Daniel Jones to be the Colts QB1 for the rest of the season. Now, we'll see if Jones can play well enough to hold him to that, but that is the plan, that Daniel Jones will be the Colts starting quarterback in all of 2025.
And Chris Ballard leaned into the word competition at the Combine. Looking at the preseason in a vacuum, the Colts were a better offense with Daniel Jones on the field. Indy averaged 6.3 yards per play and 44 snaps with Jones under center. Compare that to 4.7 and 26 snaps with Anthony Richardson, though his turn was abbreviated by a dislocated finger. Head coach Shane Steichen spoke today about the choice.
You guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for. And really the operation at the line of scrimmage, the checks, the protection. Daniel did a great job doing that, and I think AR has made strides in that area. But I do feel that, he still needs to continue to develop. He knows that he still needs to develop and learn in those areas, and he knows that he's one play away.
You just got to respect the decision. I feel like he's a better fit for the team, better fit for the outcome of us winning. So you just got to respect it and just keep working. That doesn't undermine any other work I've been putting in. Doesn't say that I haven't improved. I'm proud of the improvement I've made. Shane is also proud of that. So you got to keep stacking on that and just keep getting better.
Obviously, a big piece of why I came here and to play, to be on the field, and to be with this group. I think it's a strong group of players, as I said, and a strong group of coaches and the system. I think there's a lot of things here to be excited about. So, I'm certainly happy to make the decision as this.
We've already heard from Adam Schefter, Sam Acho, Mike Tannenbaum, with me, Phil Murphy, here for the hour. Mike, the Indiana Jones marketing campaign is officially a go. You're a former GM. What's your reaction to the Colts going in this direction for week one?
I think they made a mistake. When they drafted Anthony Richardson, Phil, they knew that he only had 13 career starts. He's only had 15 so far in the pro level. And by comparison, you look at some recent quarterbacks like Bryce Young, 27 starts, Caleb Williams, 33. Cam Ward, 57 this year. He is a work in progress. So to me, they have some nice weapons now when you think about Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, drafted Tyler Warren. But to me, if you're going to draft Anthony Richardson with all that ability, all that upside, it's not going to happen overnight. And to me, Daniel Jones, we know what he is. He's a competent quarterback, but he has struggled with turnovers. He's struggled with sacks. He's only completed one season in his career. I would go with the younger player who has much more upside.
Yeah, the difference, though, is that this was a competition, and Anthony Richardson did not win the competition. I'd argue that Daniel Jones didn't win it either. He just didn't lose it. I don't think this was a far and away win by Daniel Jones, but the coaches are saying, who do we trust more? And going back to even just that broken pinky play, right, where Anthony Richardson wasn't able to adjust to the blitz and take that sack. It was not a lot of trust that is being put forward for Anthony Richardson. Both Richardson and Jones looked inconsistent for a majority of the preseason. There were some flashes where they looked good, but neither looked consistent. Neither inspired too much confidence. Now, I will say this. The lesser turnovers when it comes to Anthony Richardson, when it comes to Daniel Jones, so I think that's why he's able to earn this spot.
Mike, you touched on it a minute ago. It's not terribly common for a team to move on not just from a first-round pick, a top 5 pick so quickly. Anthony Richardson's 23. He's younger than Bo Nix, Michael Penix, down the line, Caleb Williams. Do you think his time in Indy is over?
Not necessarily. Again, Daniel Jones has had trouble with durability himself, as Coach Steichen alluded to. So he has to be mentally ready to go because he is one snap away. And look, when somebody is that young and that experienced and so talented, I would be extremely reticent if I was Indianapolis to give up on him. We could look at Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, at recent sort of examples of quarterbacks that have been at 4 different teams until they sort of hit their potential.
And Mike, you bring up Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. three quarterbacks who once were high picks who went on to become the type of quarterbacks that many expected. I think that's what the Colts are expecting right now with Daniel Jones, and it's certainly possible that Anthony Richardson will have that opportunity in the future. And the question is whether it'll be in Indianapolis, because after this season, the Colts are going to have to make a decision about whether or not to pick up the fifth-year option in Anthony Richardson's 2027 season, which would be the fifth year of his rookie contract. As it stands, if he doesn't play this year, can't imagine that they would be picking up the fifth-year option on a quarterback who hasn't played much. But if the circumstances change, Richardson could find a way to play himself into that, and if not, then he would have the opportunity to go somewhere else to try to become the latest version of those quarterbacks that you mentioned, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but the best thing that Anthony Richardson can do right now is to continue to compete. I understand that Daniel Jones has been named the starter. I understand that Shane Steichen said he doesn't plan on making any changes, but Daniel Jones' play could have a change be necessary. So Anthony Richardson, from a mental standpoint, needs to continue to get the mental reps. I understand people say that you have to let him play because he's young. Well, get those reps in practice, even if it's on scout team. Stay mentally ready and don't see this situation as a defeat, because his opportunity could come a lot sooner than expected. So he needs to be ready when that other opportunity comes again.
And ESPN's FPI has week one against the Dolphins as a functional coin flip, and then Indy's favored, according to ESPN Analytics, in 3 of the next 5. So early litmus tests for the Colts. More QB1 news out of Cleveland. The Browns announced yesterday Joe Flacco is going to start their opener. The 40-year-old Flacco was widely expected to win this job over Kenny Pickett and rookies Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, who have all dealt with injuries in camp. Coach Kevin Stefanski addressed this news today.
Yeah, he earned it, and I understand with the injuries how that may look. That's really not the case here. Joe performed really well. What he's able to bring to the football team, he's earned that role. I do think the guys believe in Joe, but I want to give credit to that entire group. I think those guys are working very, very hard. We have a standard for that position, regardless of who's in there. Practice, games, how we operate, what we believe in. We have a very, very high standard.
Our Browns reporter Daniel Oyefusi joins us from Browns camp in Berea, Ohio. Daniel, what does naming a QB1 end up being Joe Flacco do for this QB room at large?
Well, Phil, it means that there's clarity at the top of the depth chart for the Browns, but everything behind Flacco is still very much up in the air. Today, Coach Kevin Stefanski declined to name a backup to Flacco, and when I asked him if maybe there's an ongoing competition for that spot, he said that all these roles are not given out, they're earned. Now, keep in mind, last month, GM Andrew Berry said that it's very possible that they keep all 4 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, and as we head into the final week of the preseason, it's important to note that Kenny Pickett returned to 11-on-11 drills today for the first time since injuring his hamstring. And Stefanski said he's very much still excited about Pickett.
And Daniel, this is a team that when Flacco was starter 2 years ago, they went 4-1 in those games, ultimately going 11-6, and 11 wins ties the franchise high going all the way back to 1986. Daniel, thank you so much. So Sam Acho, you sign one QB in free agency, you trade for another, you draft 2 more, and then ultimately go with the elder statesman of the bunch by, 10 years plus. Does the Flacco decision make sense to you?
It does, but I don't think this competition is over. I understand that Joe Flacco can run the offense very well, but here's the issue. If this Cleveland Brown teams gets down in a game and it's obvious past situations, you may see what happened in the 2023 playoffs when they played the Texans, when all of a sudden they're down by a couple scores, Joe Flacco takes a couple sacks, and now he's trying to get the ball out quickly. What's going to happen is if pass rushers, like when they played the Baltimore Ravens or other teams earlier in the season, get a chance to get to the quarterback and they can't move the ball as effectively because they're down in a game, Cleveland may look to go to a more mobile quarterback, and that could be both Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. So I understand that Joe Flacco has been named the starter, but I believe that this competition is far from over.
Well, it's not any surprise about who's starting in Cleveland. I think the real quarterback drama in Cleveland is who's going to be the backup quarterback in Cleveland. Everybody always expected that Joe Flacco would be the starting quarterback from the moment he signed with the Cleveland Browns back in April. And we can just prove that by pointing to the fact that Joe Flacco didn't play it down in a preseason game this summer, and he still was named the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And yet, The real interesting part of this is, what do the Browns do at the backup quarterback position? Do they go with Dillon Gabriel? Do they go with Shedeur Sanders? On their current depth chart, for whatever that's worth, and maybe they haven't changed it at all this summer, they have Joe Flacco listed as the starter. They have Kenny Pickett listed as second string. They have Dillon Gabriel listed as third string, and they have Shedeur Sanders listed as fourth string. Let's see what happens in the final preseason game, where I'm sure they'll give an opportunity to Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders to get a better idea of who might be higher on the depth chart come the start of the regular season.
Mike, you heard Adam's analysis. There's intrigue and potential promise elsewhere in the depth chart. Kevin Stefanski won't name QB2. I'm going to ask you to name QB2. How should the Browns approach this?
I would give each player a half. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, let them go compete this weekend. They both look good, but they both were hurt. So it's been an odd situation because Joe Flacco, as Adam alluded to, didn't play it down, but he was the only one of the four quarterbacks that wasn't hurt. I was actually really encouraged by both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when they were out there against the Panthers and the Eagles. Look, Dillon Gabriel had the 2 turnovers in fairness here, but I thought they were both encouraging. Let them go and compete, and let them compete every week. That's how you're going to get the best out of both of them.
Yeah, Sanders was cleaner, but Gabriel had more yards per attempt, 7.9 for him as opposed to 6 even for Sanders. But these are the situations you create when you, the home of the #1 overall pick. Things got Nashville hot, according to our Teron Davenport. Quote, Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward got into it. Ward hit Ridley for a touchdown. Ward was going to, Calvin Ridley walked by Simmons, who put his hands on him, and it caused a scuffle. Simmons was running hot from the previous play. Sam Acho, longtime linebacker, any issue with this kind of energy at practice, especially with a #1 overall pick at QB?
I love it. I love this kind of energy. Why? Because Jeffrey Simmons doesn't want to go 3-14 anymore. He understands that if he wants to win, this is a quarterback-driven league. And so if you're the quarterback, the #1 overall pick, you want to be the dog, you got to beat the dog. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. You want to be the leader of your team. Jeffrey Simmons is one of those leaders. So I think this is a situation where mutual respect can be gained and garnered for both individuals. I don't see Cam Ward as an individual to back down. So I love the fact that he's stepping up to one of the leaders of the Titans.
Yeah, and maybe, ignorance is bliss with the franchise. They've never drafted a quarterback first overall, so you let him play and see if that energy can translate to the field. There's a former #1 pick under center in Tampa, but some forced changes around that offense, around Baker Mayfield. It was announced today, second-year wide receiver Jalen McMillan will undergo, go to IR with the neck injury, missing a minimum of 4 games for an offense already down a wide receiver, Chris Godwin, and left tackle Tristan Wirfs. They also have a new OC, Liam Cohen, taking the Jags head coaching job, and they just used a first-round pick on receiver Emeka Egbuka, number 19 overall, who's now in line to get even more reps with McMillan and Chris Godwin out. Mike T, you've done some roster gymnastics before in your day as a longtime GM. What is your level of concern with these injuries and that this offense will now take a step back this season?
Minimal, because we're not focusing on what they added. First of all, in the great history of Ohio State, their all-time leading receiver is none other than Emeka Egbuka. What a great draft choice by Jason Licht, the general manager of the Buccaneers. Draft a position of strength, so when you have a couple injuries, you can withstand it. To go out there on opening day with him, Cade Otton, and pending Hall of Famer Mike Evans is really the envy of most teams. Baker Mayfield had a great year last year, 41 touchdown passes. They'll be fine. I work with Josh Grzard, their new offensive coordinator. Bright young coach. I don't think these are ideal situations, but they'll overcome them.
And in truth, something of a loaded question, asking if they're going to take a step back. The 41 touchdowns for which Mayfield threw last season, only Joe Burrow had more in the NFL. In Dallas, no update to the soap opera when it comes to a long-term extension for Micah Parsons, but Joe Buck and Troy Aikman addressed that during last night's Monday Night Football telecast.
The other side is, if you're Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, how do you try to win or be great without Micah Parsons?
Well, you can't be. That's his leverage. His leverage is they can't win without him. Certainly worth every penny that he's ultimately going to get paid. The longer it goes, the more money he's going to make. So I wouldn't stress too much if I was him, but that essentially is the only leverage. Now, what are the Cowboys going to do? You think I know the answer to that? I don't think anybody knows what Jerry's ever going to do.
Adam Schefter, this morning on Sportsmanlike Radio, you use the term divorce when talking about Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and Dallas. Eyebrows were raised, blood pressure was raised. What did you mean by that?
Well, Phil, essentially the two sides have not had any contract negotiations since late March or early April. It certainly sounds like the Cowboys are disappointed in Micah. It sounds like Micah is disappointed with the Cowboys. And Micah's request to be traded, which he put out on social media a few weeks ago, spoke for itself. He laid it all out. Since then, you would have thought that